I tell you, the American people from one side or the other had better wake up and oppose such a program, and if they don't, the next thing will be a totalitarian state in these United States.
The language of the American right has not changed much over the past century.
We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
They present an idealized sense of America in great jeopardy, one that needs to be defended, not just from outsiders, but from traitors in our midst.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Congresswoman Bachmann echoes the wild charges that were flung in the early 1950s by Senator Joseph McCarthy.
Even if there are only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many. Our job as Americans and as Republicans is to dislodge the traitors from every place where they have been sent to do their traitorous work.
The roots of the new right lie in the anti-communist conservative groups of the 1950s. Fundamentalist preacher Billy James Hargis's conspiracy-minded Christian crusade was broadcast on hundreds of radio and TV stations.
I have just signed a contract with one of the biggest record companies in America. I'm producing 3 anti-communist albums for them in the next 12 months for national distribution.
And in the late 1950s, a group of citizens banded together to weed out communists from American society. The John Birch Society, named after an American missionary killed by Chinese communists, also opposed civil rights and other liberal initiatives. In a 1961 appearance on Meet the Press, the Society's founder, former candy magnate Robert Welch, made an argument that sounds very familiar today.
But what we're trying to do is to restore what's been lost of a constitutional American republic as our founding fathers gave it to us.
Welch was staunchly anti-communist and went further than Joe McCarthy, fingering President Eisenhower and his brother Milton.
Well, you said, for example, in my opinion, the chances are very strong that Milton Eisenhower is actually Dwight Eisenhower's superior and boss within the Communist Party.
Okay.
Just as today's Tea Partiers are working to get their own candidates elected, the John Birch Society became active in mainstream politics. In the 1964 presidential campaign, they rallied behind Barry Goldwater, the arch-conservative Republican candidate for president.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
It was clear that Goldwater was taunting critics who'd been attacking him for being an extremist. But his battle cry was used just this year by vandals who put a brick through the glass door of a New York County's Democratic Party headquarters after the health bill passed. At the time, Goldwater was too extreme for most of the country. He was trounced by President Lyndon Johnson.
The voice of the people was heard in the land. An overwhelming mandate is handed to Lyndon Baines Johnson, who becomes 36th President of the United States.
A victory that gave Johnson a liberal mandate for his Great Society programs like Medicare and the War on Poverty, which continue to be the bane of far-right groups today. It would be 16 years before another full-fledged conservative would gain the Republican nomination, and this time win the presidency.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Unlike Goldwater, the far less threatening Ronald Reagan had help from the bad economy in 1980 and from a well-organized network on the right that started in the 1970s, including the intellectual heft of the Heritage Foundation, the conservative women's groups campaigning against the Equal Rights Amendment.
We've got a right to be treated by ladies, and just because there's a noisy little bunch that has great access to the media that's been promoting this idea that men and women have to be treated the same, we're not going to acquiesce in that.
And powerful religious right groups like Jerry Falwell's Moral Majority. But in 1992, the hard right's Pat Buchanan ran and lost in the Republican primaries against the incumbent president, George H.W. Bush. To placate the right, Bush's team gave Buchanan a speaking slide at the Republican convention. He used it to lay out his vision for America.
Block by block, my friends, we must take back our cities and take back our culture and take back our country.
Some blame Buchanan's rhetoric for hurting the Bush re-election effort, pushing moderates to vote for the Democratic candidate, Bill Clinton. But Buchanan's call to arms resonates loudly in the new right rallies of today. And were he to give the same speech in 2010, it would echo for days, even weeks, thanks to 24-hour news and the internet. Coming up, how the new right fans the flames.
Will he stage a terror attack or a crisis like other presidents have done? Will he launch a new war? This is what politicians and tyrants do.